that means they were asking for the leave of the United Way, from the European Union. And at the time, Erwin Hoffmann stated in a very bright way that being that the situation, the Poland has two things to do. Either she says, well, we want to keep with the principle and we revoke the decision and we are trying to get another one from the Constitutional Court because it's against the constitutional law in European level, or on the other hand, they should have to leave the European Union. But this drastic situation that were faced in 2021 almost disappeared now, and the situation keeps on with Article 7, and let us say that some of these problems disappeared as a victim of war, as we'll see in the fourth point of this lecture. Third point are the national plans and the Portuguese national plan. In the beginning, the national plans were in a slow way being approved by the Commission, and let us say that Hungary and Poland plan take some more time in order to be approved, but in the end now they all were, and the things were solved without any major problems. And that means that the opportunity for the state law to be improved in a more strengthened way, in a more decisive way, was lost. If you look at our Portuguese plan of reconstruction and resilience, it corresponds to the allocation of a total of 16.6 billion euros, of which 13.9 billion euros in grants and 2.7 billion euros in loans. I think it was a good decision of the Portuguese government to ask for more allocation of money than for loans, because we have a chronic problem of debt, and it would be a good solution not to do so. And this kind of money, 16.6 billion euros, it's a huge kind of money, a huge sum of money. And we also assist in our election that the Portuguese Prime Minister compared the money coming from these plans as a bazooka, as a kind of war weapon that was decisive in order to solve economical and social problems of Portugal. And we see also, which was not good, that this argument of the bazooka was used to fight against the opponents in the political arena. So he had the notion that was indeed a good weapon and he used it in the best way he could. And the result is, as we are seeing now in Portugal, absolute majority, which is something that is not normal in other countries of Europe. But taking that in consideration, we are before a huge amount of money. If we look at the organization, if you look at the governance of the plan that was adopted, it has 4 levels of coordination. First, it has the strategical level of political coordination, which is ensured by the Interministerial Commission of the PII, chaired by the Prime Minister and composed of members of the government. The responsibles for the areas of economy, digital transition, foreign affairs, the presidency, finance, planning and environment, and climate action. Then we have the level of monitoring, which is ensured by the National Monitoring Commission, chaired by an independent personality and composed of personalities of recognized merit, also integrating a wide range of entities from the business, science and knowledge, social and cooperative sectors, and territories. The expression territories that comes in the law, it's a little bit vague, but it can be the only way of having some representatives of the local and regional governments. But we are not sure that will happen. And if you look at the persons that were nominated, there is just a short number of them who represent local and regional government, which I do criticize, and I think it was not a good choice. Further is the level of technical coordination and monitoring, which is ensured with the cooperation of an agency of development and the planning, strategy, evaluation, and international relation offices of the Ministry of Finance. It means that the Ministry of Finance has an influence in all the levels of decision. And in the end, the level of audit and control chaired by the General Inspectorate of Finance and with a representative of an agency for the of the. So if you look at these four levels, we have to conclude there is a governance system with a flexible and ad hoc structure, which on ministerial bodies and entities of and of the direct come to an absence of participation in the governance of the plan, both of the regional and local authorities, which can only intervene indirectly in monitoring the plan if there are personalities of recognized merit linking to the territory, and that does not seem to have been the case in Portugal. So my critic against this composition also has to do with this. From a content point of view, the Portuguese plan covers three main areas of activities, like all the others. But the combination of activities in Portugal, in some cases, is a little bit strange. Excuse me. For instance, resilience, which is one of the sectors, comprises the following headings: National Health Service, housing, social responses, culture, capitalization in businesses innovation, qualification of skills, infrastructure, forest, and water management. This is a bag of cats. Everything is in this resilience chapter, and there is no coordination with all these goals. And that's something that I don't agree, and I criticize the Portuguese government for having done such a choice. Then we have climate transition that comprises the following headings: C, decarbonization of industry, sustainable bioeconomy, energy efficiency in buildings, hydrogen and renewables, sustainable mobility, but not forest nor water management that is included in resilience. So it does not make sense. And then there is the digital transition, which comprises the following headings: companies, quality and sustainability of public finances, economic justice and the business environment, more efficient public administration, digital school. Also a complex mixture of goals, none of them coordinated, that is not or cannot be the best choice. And by the way, the Commission says that in a very nice way to put it. They say that the second and the third chapters of the Portuguese plan are indeed very good, and says nothing about the resilience, the first chapter, which has a meaning. And we can understand why, because, as I said before, that first chapter is a bag of cats. And but if you look at the distribution of amounts in question in all these areas of activity, we see a proportion that is like this: 38% for climate issues, 22% for digital issues, with the remaining 40% for the area of resilience. Precisely that chapter that is more controversial in this system. So now with this situation, we have the best part, the biggest part of the budget to this sector of resiliation, and these goals are not coordinated. These goals are from all different kind of things, and this bag of cats has lots of problems in working quite well, because this bag of cats goes from health to culture, from capitalization and business innovation to forests, from qualification skills to water management, from social responses to infrastructure. Everything has to do with everything, and everything is equally illegible. This all lends itself, by the way, of the politicization of the plan. And this politicization, it was seen, as I said, in the last electoral campaign for local authorities, and the government seemed to use what he called the economic bazooka, giving more chances for the mayors that were from the Socialist Party than some others. And the first scandal in this absolute majority government that we are having now happened yesterday, when the budget was proposed and in the parliament. And when we look at the amounts, there was an amount that was given to only one institution of superior education, precisely the institution to which faculty is member, the former Minister of Finances that left the government and became immediately vice rector of that institute. It was the only one that got 8 million euros to support a program approved in the plan of resilience and recovery, which means that this combination that has been done can work quite wrong if some cares are not going to be taken. In a merely perfunctory global assessment, it could be said that the list of each of the plan's areas is so numerous and diverse that it leaves many doubts as to their respective internal connection and coherence. It reminds me, as a cinephile, a story told in the film Amadeus by Milos Forman that some of you probably have seen, about a scene where the Austrian emperor Joseph III, was asked by Mozart what he thought about his music, and the answer he gave, and that has been blown by Salieri, was too many notes. if we look at the Portuguese plan for reconstruction and resilience, it seems to have too many objectives and areas of application. And this can be only a demonstration of two opposite things. It can be a demonstration of genius, of a geniosity. The plan was made by a genius, as in the case, as it was in the case for Mozart's work, or it can be an inadequacy of the measures that have been taken. And from the considerations that I made above, it seems to me that is already there are already well-founded doubts as to the geniosity, that's the genius character of the Portuguese plan. First, the war in Europe. Introducing now the changes to all this situation. The war arises in Europe after the invasion of Putin's Russia. Well, it's Russia, but Putin's give us a more personalized mood to react against it, to another neighbor independent country, Ukraine, in violation of international law and order. And I might say that the first reaction all over Europe, and sometimes even all over Europe, and all over the world, was surprise, a completely surprise about the situation. Because in Europe, we did not want to believe that a war was still possible nowadays. We adopted, without thinking, without a second thought, the idea of Kant of a perpetual peace. But this perpetual peace in Kant's idea had some presuppositions that were not taken care. But we decided to adopt it, and we did not pay attention to some signs of possible war that was going to come in the 20th century. And these signs, to which we did not pay attention, have to do with disintegration of Yugoslavia, the Kosovo, the previous Russian invasion to the Donbass area, signs of war that we did not pay attention, and then we react with a huge surprise, which was not the right way of reacting with the situation. And what in Europe was quite an earthquake in the political and economical situation in Europe and in the world that changed the whole scenario that was being prepared. It had, on one hand, political consequences. It showed more cohesion in the EU, and this cohesion was manifested in matters like the condemnation of the invasion and the imposition of economic sanctions against Russia, common policy and military goals together with the OTAN, the attempt of a common response to the political crisis. And that, in the situation we were living in, it's a very good outcome and a very good surprise. But it brought, on the other hand, the minimization of political divergences. Inside the EU, some critical positions of Hungary, Poland, and these countries that we talked before were relativized and minimized in face of a common position against Russia. And from the part of Poland, she became the Good Samaritan for the Ukrainian refugees, which gives an ethical position that is very difficult to criticize. And minimize all the problems that existed before in that situation. But this minimization of political divergences also appeared outside the EU, because we look at an approximation coming closer of the European Union and United Kingdom. in the political international arena. After the Brexit, and besides the Brexit, there is now coming together of the EU and United Kingdom. And in this week, we are assisting to a kind of competition for taking the exact same position. Uh, there is a visit. There was a visit of the president of the Commission, von der Leyen, to Kiev. The next day, immediately, Boris Johnson was visit Kiev. And today we had the president of the European Council also visiting Kiev. And next week, of course, we are going to have the Foreign Office Minister of the United Kingdom government there also visiting again Kiev. So there was an approach. And this approach can be used and can be a change in the political situation. And this minimization from the point of view of the EU is also accompanied by resurrection of NATO after the Russian threat, both from the American side as from the European side. Everybody declared that NATO was dead and it had to be replaced. Trump said so, but also almost politicals in Europe say, well, there is no need for NATO. Let's change the alliance. It does not mean that it stays only European. Let's do a global organization. Everybody talked about the death of NATO. And we can say now, one can say, like Mark Twain said before, that the death of NATO was largely exaggerated and did not happen. And we look at the things, and we have in the midst of NATO, if there's no global intervention, there is a very strong military support to Ukraine, even not being a member of the alliance. We have new candidates for the adhesion, Finland and Sweden. In Sweden, there is a new spirit that comes to a reuse and discovery of the alliance as an opportunity for possible further alliances, agreements, and policy combinations in Europe and in the world. But we have also economic consequences in the short and mid and long term. First of all, we have the economic crisis because there are internal economic effects of the sanctions against Russia. And the more the time passes, these consequences are becoming stronger. Then we, rediscover not just the inflation, which is something that all European institutions are talking about, but we discover a phantom of the 90s that we thought that was already gone. There is the monster of stagflation, which is the mixture of stagnation with inflation, which means a dead situation, a situation where the two possible bad things that could happen at the same time. And this economic crisis also shows a need for a new solution for the energetic dependence of Europe. Of course, that is something that can give us some hope, the hope of the renewable sources and trying for changing for a better green solution for the energy. But in the short term, because this is a decision that can be taken immediately, but in the short term, we need at least the diversification of sources, something that some countries of the European Union, especially those like Germany and Nordic countries, uh, until now did not do it, and they are very dependent, still very dependent of Russia. And now we need to diversify the sources, including America, Africa, and all these kind of combinations in order to solve the problem. This economic crisis in the short term bring problems to the application of the plans. And we are already listening, both at European and at the national level, that there are needed more amounts of money in order to solve the problems of the application of the plans, because the money involved was calculated for prices without inflation. And if now there is an inflation, the prices need to be readapted and the plans should be refunded. And the European Union also made a statement saying that she's going to take care of that, and it's need to apply some injections, an expression that comes with the disease, some new injections of money in order to readapt the problems of application of plan. But there are not just problems of application. There are also problems of insufficiency of the plans. They are not sufficient, they are not enough, they are not able now to solve the problems they should. Because adding to COVID-19, we now have the economic effects of a war. Nobody knows when it will end. And it brings with it economic consequences that show that the plans as they were conceived will not bring the expected results. So we need for broader and more effective solutions. Coming to that point, my question is, what future for Europe now? The economic recovery is something really necessary, and the actual considerations that are being done are just in a short time basis. But we need, since we don't know when the war will end, to consider the long-term solutions. And according to the news, in the last EU Council meeting, there was the beginning of such a discussion in the last EU Council. And as far as it is being talked in the EU, there are three possible solutions for this problem in the midterm. One possible solution is to reuse and readapt of the actual plans to the present situation. It means it is the very easiest system to act, and it means that we need more money for new goals, and we'll keep on doing what we are doing right now. The second solution that seems to have some good defendants in Europe is the creation of a new generation of plans, in addition to the present ones that should be readapted with new and more comprehensive goals and more money, specially conceived to deal with the post-war problems. So the others stay for COVID, and now we have new plans for a new reality. And the third solution, and a more global one, which is also at this moment impossible to think about it in a complete clear way, integrates Europe and the United States together with an integration plan in a kind of multilateral and global plan Marshall. The difference is the globalized and multilateral program. It can be approached with new policies agreed in a common level, but it depends on the cooperation that will be established between Europe and the United States after this situation. Let me say now that the things that were discussed and have to do about this situation are related to NATO, where there was created already a kind of plan Marshall for the recovery of Ukraine that shares the money, shares the goals, and shares the governance of the project between the United States and the EU. But it also needs a real cooperation between them in order to make it work. Finally, regarding to the institutional point of view, some institutions remain, some other probably need to change a little bit. And if we don't need necessarily new institutions, we'll need at least a roadmap and some adaptations of the behavior of the global institutions. We need, first of all, to recreate United Nations and try to make it work. Because someone say, and probably is true, that United Nations is one of the victims of the Ukrainian war. We know that the system was not to take clear decisions in all the situations. We know that we have to involve the major powers from the point of view of the states, but some other combinations can be tried. And those kind of combinations can create more flexibility for this situation. Then we have to reinvent NATO and increase the military participation to all the members in a common military defense. We've noticed that, for instance, German discovered that now she has autonomous political defense, which is something good. And this new defense is integrated in NATO, but we have to coordinate that also with the EU and create a common policy for army in the state level. And I think we need also to think, or in one of two options, or to create another institution, or some kind of new agreement between EU and United Kingdom for increasing economic cooperation besides the Brexit. Because it was something that was talked by some of my German friends in some meetings, for instance, Peter Huber and others like that, that told me once that a good solution was to create circles, a circle of more cooperation between the countries that are members of the EU, then a circle a little bit bigger with some of others that accept all kinds of agreements, and in the end, a circle of democracy and states where there is the rule of law. And coming to this situation and come to this well, convergence between the countries of Europe and even the countries that left the European Union, but they are looking for common positions in some situations. Maybe this idea of having circles more intense and more diversified can be a good solution to create uh, a system that can work. So I believe there is a need to create more multilateral instruments and institutions of all kinds, and that is the only solution to the after war in Europe and in global world. And if we are able with these circles to engage all the democratic and rule of law states in all the world, I think it can be a good solution without putting in damage uh, the autonomy and the more intensive goals that are persecuted by the European Union. But that is talking about the future. And as my grandma said, the future, nobody knows what will be. And if we think about it too much, it will be tragic. So better not to think. And that's what she's done after she had become 80 years, when she became happier than ever. And I think perhaps that's a good solution for all our problems. I'm sorry, perhaps I took too much time, but these are some reflections that were that were the result of an evolution in 2 years. Everything changed, and the things that we defended last year are updated now because they don't fit the actual situation. Which for a universitarian like we are, it may be perhaps a good thing, but on the other hand, it's not the most reliable way of trying to do some science. Okay, Pereira, you are so kind. You are so kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vasco. May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Because I absolutely agree that we need more multilateral convergence, multilateral work on these topics. I was wondering, do you think, since the crisis that we are experiencing are sort of piling up, one crisis comes after the other, and especially with the question of financing, that becomes a major and constant problem. Do you think we need some sort of legal rules that are governing these crises? That means administrative law that's governing crisis situations, since we can't just always act in emergency with emergency acts and emergency laws without regard to the basic principles. So wouldn't it be advisable to design laws that are applicable in times of crisis, when you and try to safeguard as much of the rule of law as it is possible in these situations?
Yeah, of course, completely. And I believe the experience and the theorization that we have made before in the old good days about global law, global administrative law, global constitutionalism, global European law, both in the administrative and in constitutional point of view, can be very helpful, because it's a way of finding governance where until now there was no rule.